thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
We are live.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. That's right. It is Friday, February 14th. And today, is Rico with us yet?
Oh,
No?
I'm here, man.
Oh, Rico. All right, Rico,
Yeah.
You're going to love this, bro. You ready? You ready for this?
Always.
It's National Cream-Filled Chocolates Day.
Yes, it is. It must be Valentine's Day.
It must be Valentine's Day. Oh, man. Yes, that's right. It is Valentine's Day today, you guys. It's also National Ferris Wheel Day. You know, it's like the world. We just keep going around and around in circles. And it's also National Organ Donor Day today, you guys.
Oregon donor?
Oregon.
Or Oregon.
Not Oregon, not Oregon donor. Organ donor, guys. Organ donor. Shout out to all the organ donors.
What kind of happy trails you talking about, Jason?
Oh man, you know,
You were trying to donate Portland to China or something like that.
that'd be a good start. You know what I mean?
I know.
That would be a good start. What's that, Dr. Mark?
Yeah, you might as well give them Ukraine too, right?
What's that, Dr. Mark?
You know what's better than roses on your piano?
What's that?
Tulips on your organ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
That's
you know,
classic.
yeah, back in the day.
Forgot that joke.
Yeah, back in the day, Dr. Mark, we used to have a condom jar or condom bowl on the counter on the shop, and we used to put tulips in a little arrangement of tulips in the center of the condom jar or of the condom bowl, and then we used to always tell people, what do you need before you go in between two lips?
Yeah.
Well, also today, you guys, today is also my adoption day. Today on Valentine's Day.
Oh man.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes. Big day. So thank you to my family for adopting me. Very much appreciation, you guys, mom and dad. Thank you all so much. But anyways, we are going to keep this thing rolling. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, and on our very own website at www.high9news.com. We're still trying to figure out this LinkedIn thing, but thank you all for joining us from whatever platform you are joining us from. And we are going to kick it off with the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte. He is wearing his hat straight today. Not sure why, but he's dressed in all red too. Like, oh man, looking like he's from Compton today. That's right. It is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
Got the pink hat on, man. Got a pink hat on. I'm red and pink. I'm very festive today because
very Sue Whoopish.
It is, as you said, cream-filled chocolate day.
It is cream-filled chocolate day today. That's right. Right. Oh man, Vermont Alternative says Cameron Pink.
The pink tape. Classics.
Mm-hmm.
Killer. All right. Speaking of love, officially confirmed by the Senate and sworn in yesterday, Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. is now the United States Health and Human Services Secretary. After years of amplifying pro-cannabis initiatives, running his own presidential campaign anchored by language we all agree and got down with, and gaining support from marijuana advocates across the established political spectrum, the industry's response to the news was mid. According to MJ Biz Daily's Chris Roberts, the cannabis industry remains cautiously optimistic following RFK Jr.'s confirmation, despite his lukewarm stance on marijuana reform. The Senate confirmed Kennedy in a 52-48 vote, with all Democrats and one Republican opposing. While Kennedy previously supported federal marijuana decriminalization, he was noncommittal during confirmation hearings and promised to review the FDA's reasoning for rescheduling cannabis. His influence on rescheduling is limited, as the DEA has the final authority. Some industry stakeholders see his confirmation as part of a broader shift in health perspectives, but marijuana policy under Trump's administration remains uncertain. The uncertainty Roberts alluded to may be tied to the angle Kyle Yeager took in his response piece on In Marijuana Moment. Yeager reported that ahead of the new health secretary's confirmation, Nebraska Republican Senator Pete Ricketts, who many may or may not know that he is allegedly in a throuple with Christian fundamentalist Oklahoma Senator Jim Lankford and Project Sam frontman Kevin Sabet, claimed that Kennedy committed to following the science on the harms of marijuana, and that's how he got his vote. However, it is unclear what this entails, as HHS under the Biden administration had already determined marijuana has medical value and a lower abuse potential than Schedule I drugs. Kennedy, who previously supported marijuana legalization, was notably silent on the issue during confirmation and has stated he will defer to the DEA on rescheduling. His appointment, along with Trump's pick for DEA head, who has voiced concerns about marijuana, could complicate reform efforts. Meanwhile, anti-cannabis lawmakers are pushing to prevent tax deductions for the marijuana industry. Kennedy's stance on psychedelics reform has drawn mixed reactions, with some viewing him as a potential ally and others fearing his approach could undermine scientific legitimacy. Yeager thinks that Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation adds uncertainty to the future of marijuana and psychedelics policy under the Trump administration. In Maureen Meehan's take on Benzinga this morning, she echoed much of Yeager's sentiment, saying that following the confirmation, cannabis advocates are questioning his commitments to following the science on the harms and not the benefits of marijuana. Kennedy, who previously campaigned on cannabis legalization as a way to address drug addiction, now says that he will defer to the DEA on rescheduling. Senator Pete Ricketts claimed Kennedy assured him that he would focus on marijuana's harms, not benefits, raising concerns among legalization supporters. Some, like Poseidon investment manager Emily Paxia, see Kennedy's confirmation as part of a broader shift in health perspectives, while others doubt his consistency on drug policy. Despite Trump's past campaign support for cannabis reform, he has remained silent on the issue as president, leaving uncertainty about the admin's stance on policy going forward. And then finally, in his first major interview as a U.S. health secretary, RFK Jr. sat down with known Fox News prohibitionist and high-potency cannabis conspiracy theorist Laura Ingraham, of all people, where he also expressed concerns about high-potency marijuana, while also acknowledging the failures of criminalization. He warned in the interview of marijuana's potential harms, but emphasized that legalization enables research into its risks and benefits. Kennedy, who has been in recovery for 40 years, noted that he frequently hears about marijuana's negative effects in his own 12-step meetings. However, he pointed out that a significant portion of the U.S. prison population is incarcerated for marijuana offenses, which they should look closer at, because he thinks it's unacceptable. Like, he's HHS. You're not in charge of the prisons, bro. But anyways, his comments come as the DEA considers HHS's recommendation to reclassify marijuana from Schedule I to Schedule III. And despite his past support for legalization and taxation for drug treatment, his current stance suggests a more cautious approach focused on balancing public health concerns with reform efforts. It's a lot so far, but what do y'all think? Did we get finessed? Will our new HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., be the true 47% rabble-rousing loud pack that he advertised himself as to all of us over the years? Or will it be revealed in time that Bobby was just another clout-chasing, dusty-ass lab-shopped spray pack all along? I cannot wait to hear what the team has to say about this one. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News. RFK Jr. bringing the truth back, or is he just another booth pack?
Oh, that's cute. That's cute. That's cute. That's cute.
Motherfucker.
Oh boy. All the popcorn. All the popcorn. I want to hear what the doctors have to say first before I chime in, because I think you guys all know what I'm going to say.
Well, I mean, I don't think health and wellness is involved in this discussion, unfortunately. Following the science is a good idea because the science is objective if it's done correctly. And there are risks and benefits to cannabis, far more benefits than there are risks. But we should describe them all of the above and move this forward. But it seems to me, and by the way, HHS has the final say. HHS, the Department of Justice, that's correct. It doesn't have the qualifications to judge health and wellness. That comes from the health department. The Department of Justice has to execute what health and wellness has said, and health and wellness has said to reconsider and reschedule cannabis to Schedule 3. So that's what the Department of Justice needs to do. We'll see if they actually end up doing it. Who knows?
So what you're saying is Ann Milgram should be thrown in jail, Dr. T.
Well, she's not there anymore, right?
No.
She obstructed reclassification.
Yes.
HHS should have pushed it through already.
Yes, and Congress back in the 70s specifically said HHS has the power to avoid this this kind of thing that the Department of Justice has been trying to do. But here they are still trying to do it.
That is all very, 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 very true. Dr. Mark, what do you have to say about this?
Well, first want to say I love you, Jason Beck.
Yeah.
I love you, Jesse Barney, even though I don't know you very well.
Lots of love today.
Oh God, I think what I'd like to comment on is that, there are other people who are much more skilled at running a large organization than this guy. This guy is just a conspiracy theorist, former drug addict, just not the kind of person that needs to be heading up the Health and Human Services. I do agree that there is a lot of red tape in our government, especially when it comes to health and health care. Underneath his auspices now is the Food and Drug Administration, the NIH, and all that comes along. And it's just a tall order. I think this guy is way beyond his capability in being able to manage such an organization. But, I guess like the rest of Trump's appointments, let's just see how they do,
Mm-hmm. Interesting perspective, you guys. I think this is a big win. I understand a lot of the skepticism or whatnot that Rico wants to portray, and I watched the.
Well, why are you saying me? The Dr. Mark just gave skepticism. Why are you saying me? I didn't say no skepticism.
He didn't get offered. Nothing like what you did.
Why are you coming at me, Jason?
Nothing like what you did.
You're disabled and I'm black. We just like minorities in the room. You just try to come at me
because it's
you're afraid to attack the white man. What's going on, Jason?
It's cream filled chocolate day, bro. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I had a balanced approach. I was like, yo, like I don't know
about all that. I don't know about all that. Let me tell you something.
Popcorn because like, yo, like the chickens are coming to roost from both sides.
I specialize in balance because I have none. You know what I'm saying, Rico? Yeah, exactly.
But Jason, you've got to be skeptical when somebody's playing politics. And RFK is playing politics now.
Yeah, and I think that whole thing was politics, and the fact of him saying that he was going to follow the science, I think I signal as great news for descheduling and not for Schedule 3. Because if you follow the science and you follow all of that, he definitely know. Hold on, Enrico. He definitely knows that all of the studies that were funded prior to were funded based off of biases and whatnot, and that if there wouldn't be anything funded that would show any positive effects of cannabis, but yet the anecdotal evidence is clear before him. I mean, I see this as a win for us.
Okay, Jason. So now that he's been confirmed,
yeah,
you established that point while he was on the stand, while he was being cross-examined by the Senate and all that shit. But now that he has been confirmed,
now the real work begins.
Laura Ingraham talking about high potency.
Bro, you gotta understand how to talk to these people. I know Laura
talking this shit like he was before.
Yeah, that's not following the science. The science says type 1, type 2, type 3. It doesn't have issues. It clarifies what type you're talking about first. High potency type 3 is very different than high potency type 1. So you can't make this blanket statement about cannabis being high potency.
It's his first day on the job, you guys. First day on the job. He made a misstep in his remarks. Okay,
rehab programs make it so you don't use any kind of substance.
They are pretty. Yeah, they are pretty much like that. You are correct about that.
The fact that he is.
I don't understand why they all drink coffee so much.
In a live interview is a big red flag for me. Just saying.
Well, and the guy that Trump wants to put ahead in charge of the DA. Or charge of the DEA, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is adopting Nancy Reagan's view on cannabis, which is they should just say no. Right? That's horribly dated and not following the science at all. So this goon that he's putting in place of to run the DEA is going to totally fuck things up, Jason.
I don't necessarily believe that. I think he's going to have a strong focus on fentanyl eradication, and that's going to take up a majority of his time. I don't think the weed is really going to get into the weeds in this.
I'm just saying the public statement that he's made.
I'm aware of the public statement. I'm aware. I'm aware of that public statement. But the thing about it is it's not about his directive. It's about President Trump's directive, and President Trump has been very clear with a lot of his directives so far. And so I expect him to get even clearer as we proceed down this path. I mean, he already released Mark Fogel released in his first 10, 15 days. You know what I mean? And he was held captive in Russia on a marijuana charge. And so for all of these Republicans that want to say this, like, they have to come to terms with it, because the reality is you can't grandstand with bringing home our troops when they were POWs for possessing cannabis in a foreign country. Okay, you can't just say, oh yeah, we're gonna want to go and get our photo op with this guy and welcome him home and this and this and this and that and all of this and still be so gung ho against marijuana. That you can't have it both ways. You got to follow the science, Dr. T and Dr. Mark. And I'm specialized in political science.
I'm all about following the science and everything. So tell me how the harsh moves that have been made so far by the guy in charge.
What harsh moves have been made?
Information off the internet about vaccines, about vaccine safety, and about other things is somehow going to make the world a better place.
Oh,
I'm the information. That's what they want to do. Control the information, right?
I don't buy that one.
The cuts that they're making, the NIH, and stopping and canceling research are going to have profound impacts on America's position as a leader in cancer and medicinal research. I mean, this is going to forever affect the livelihoods of not only people who work for the NIH, but also professors like myself at colleges and universities across the country who rely on NIH for funding.
Well, let me just say this: I'm not a fan of the vaccine. I'm not a fan of vaccines overall. I don't necessarily believe that they are based off of science. I believe they're based off of profit, and that's just kind of my personal position. And the fact that you had the government telling people that they had to either take this vaccine or lose their job. I have a big problem with all of that. A big problem with that.
You don't have polio, do you, Jason? Right? You don't have polio. And guess what? Mitch McConnell had polio. And Mitch McConnell believes in vaccines because guess what? He used to be stricken with polio, and now he's not anymore. Right? Vaccines work, bottom line. That's what the data suggests. Whether you like them or not is kind of irrelevant.
I'm not. Does not work.
Yeah, the COVID vaccine does not work at all.
So
and that actually kills people.
The thing is,
you could look at deaths from COVID, and you could see it before and after those vaccines came out, and the data speaks for itself.
And there's stories of these doctors that were killing people with ventilators.
This is getting too far off track.
They didn't
This
know
is
how to
getting way
treat
too
the
far
disease
off
when
track.
it first came out, and that's kind of not fair to basically throw doctors under the bus. They were doing the best job they could, and this was a completely new illness.
It's not the doctor's fault.
I'm not throwing the doctors under the bus.
CDC.
Yeah.
And everything that he's in charge of, and that's what we're actually stoked about, is because the CDC and the NIH just destroyed the trust of doctors and science in all of Americans' minds. That's true. And it needs to be restored.
You wouldn't be saying that if life-saving medicine that was developed at the NIH saved your life. You wouldn't be saying that. Okay.
It doesn't matter. It still destroyed the confidence of everybody's
who are alive because of the advances of modern medicine. That's it.
It still destroyed the confidence of most people. And so most people don't trust those organizations at all because of
all the conspiracy bullshit that
it's just most people. We went through.
It's hard to see, you know.
The last 5 years have been hell for tons of people. I am definitely one of those people where the last 5 years and the actions of the government and what they did on behalf of this absolutely crushed my life financially, spiritually, emotionally, in every way. And I speak for the majority of Americans for sure. So that aside, that's one topic.
For the majority of people who are on your side of the issue, that's correct.
No, well, that's
fair. That's fair. And Dr. Mark speaks for a whole nother side. That's very true. This is what this whole conversation is all about.
So that's one topic. That's aside. That's not even what the story is about. The story is about the fact that we have a guy who has spoken very positively of cannabis many times, is totally on record. We also have a president who's done the same.
And voted that way also.
So we do have a lot to hope for. Is this high on their priority list? I don't know about that. I don't know that in the scope of the health crisis that's going on in America and all of the things that are happening, how high cannabis is on their list. It is on the list, obviously. Now, the thing that I find very interesting is how quick the cannabis community, especially the people in the left in the cannabis community, are quick to jump and bat at people who are on their side. Like, these people are on our side and agree with us. They might not agree with us perfectly or have every single thing dialed all the way down the line, but they're still on our team. So we should support them and not be up their ass and making everything they do super hard. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is there's a very mixed bag of people around Trump. That there are, Pam Bondi is clearly anti-cannabis. There's some other people in the camp that are anti-cannabis, and there's other people who are super pro-cannabis, like way more pro than you would think. So there's a mixed bag, and in that sense, that's where the iffiness comes from, is how are they going to all fight it out? How's this conversation going to go down in the administration? And how's it going to filter down to all these people? We don't know. But Robert F. Kennedy is definitely a friend of weed. He may not be the very best friend you could possibly idealize in your mind, but he's still a friend. So we should support him.
Fair enough. And we did. Do you want to follow up on that? Anything, Dr. Mark, before we keep on moving forward?
The politician.
I would just stop by saying that, you know, there is a revolving door in between the Food and Drug Administration and big pharma and industrial agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And if Robert F. Kennedy represents a break from that, I think that can be welcome. But, you know, it's going to be difficult because, again, I think at the end of the day, the almighty dollar and pursuit of billion-dollar drugs is still going to be the mantra at the FDA. And I'm not sure that cannabis fits into that game plan.
Well, I'm confident that he's going to break. I'm confident that he's going to break them, Dr. Mark, and I'm keeping hope alive on this one. You know what I'm saying? As we march on through February. You know what I mean? And shout out to the C Word who sent in a big old super chat. Much love, the C Word, who says, "I am high on love. Happy St. Valentine's Day, you guys." Much love. We appreciate that very, very much. The C Word. Shout out to the C Word, man. Make sure you check it out. We're gonna keep this train rolling. We're gonna roll into our first commercial, and we're gonna be right back. Oh, that was a great.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Oh man, and we're back, you guys. We are back. That was a fun break, man. I wish the people could hear what we talk about during the break.
There should be a recorded bloopers of the outtakes.
Yeah. Oh man.
Why don't you repeat what you just said, Jason?
No. I'm not. We're not going there right now. We're trying to move this show along.
Let's keep it going. We're way over time.
Yeah, we're way over time, bro.
Way over time.
Yeah.
Is none other than the purveyor of truth.
That's right.
With an F.
The truth's truth.
Jason Beck. What you got for us, Jason? Let's get it quick, man.
You know, I got a good one for you, bro. I got a good one for you, Rico. This is probably going to trigger you, just so you know. So I'm warning you in advance, okay? Because Ohio governor, and yes, he is a rhino, despite what any of my colleagues may say, he is a rhino. He has a plan for marijuana taxes, and you guys guess what that is? That's right, building jails and scrap funding for cities, you guys. That's right. Ohio cities could lose out on money from adult use marijuana under competing plans from Governor Mike DeWine and state lawmakers to revamp the program. DeWine unveiled his 2026-2027 budget proposal last week, kickstarting negotiations over the state's spending plan for the next 2 fiscal years. The governor pitched a higher tax on adult use cannabis to pay for police training, jail construction, the 988 Suicide Lifeline, and a new program to expunge certain marijuana convictions. Notice how that's at the end. Interesting. What's not included? A fund for municipalities that voter approved in 2023 as part of the adult use marijuana law. Now, some local officials are wondering how to cover the services without an infusion of cash from dispensaries. And absent the promise of extra revenue, they may pull the plug on adult use marijuana sales altogether, you guys. In a quote, they say, "We never would have allowed adult use marijuana in our community if there was not a local host sharing agreement," said David Kubicki, president of the Columbia Township Trustees of Hamilton County. In an additional quote, "That's why we did it. We truly feel like we got bait and switched. How does DeWine want to spend marijuana revenue?"
Ohio divides marijuana revenue into 4 different funds: 36% for municipalities with dispensaries, 36% for social equity and jobs programs, and 25% for substance use services, and 3% for administrative costs. Local governments can be adult use marijuana sales, and dozens have, but also means they don't get money from the program. DeWine isn't the only one eyeing major changes to the voter-backed marijuana law, and Senate Republicans introduced legislation last month that, like the governor's budget, would eliminate funding for municipalities and social equity. The Senate bill would increase the tax rate on adult use marijuana from 10% to 15% and put money in the state's general revenue fund. Sounds like Michigan's going to be eating more of Ohio's lunch. DeWine wants to tax products at 20%, with revenue going towards jail construction and renovations. That's 25% of it. Peace officer training, that's 16% of it. 988 crisis hotline and substance use education, that's 14%. Law enforcement training, 14%. Driver's education in schools, 8%. And a program to expunge marijuana possession offenses, that's 5%. I told you that was going to be the lowest. And grants for local drug task forces, 5%. The Ohio Investigative Unit, which handles cases involving tobacco, alcohol, and food stamp fraud, 4%. And poison control and lab testing, 4%. And of course, there's some administrative costs coming in at 2.5%. In a quote, they say, "We all want more money to go back to local communities, but frankly, that was almost a lottery in the sense that some got money and some didn't get money," DeWine told reporters on Monday. In an additional quote, he says, it would have been nice to be able to do it, but we also have jails that need to be dealt with. We have police training," he says. A spokesperson for the Office of Budget and Management said local governments would still need to get, in quotes, a significant portion, end quote, of the revenue under DeWine's proposal, such as money for police and task forces. But current law gives cities the freedom to decide where that money should go, and they want to keep that authority. In a quote, "Our people know where the needs are individually in each community," said Kent Scarlett, executive director of the Ohio Municipal League. "Each community is different. Each community has its own set of issues and circumstances, and how money could change Ohio's adult use marijuana program," they say. Dispensaries have sold over $319 million in adult use marijuana products since sales launched last summer, according to the Division of Cannabis Control, and municipalities haven't received their share of the tax revenue yet, but money will be allocated in the upcoming state budget. Local leaders have already planned for it, and Kabuki said Columbia Township chose not to raise its waste collection levy in November because officials expected to have dispensary money. Anderson Township hopes to use an estimated $1.5 million annually from marijuana sales to extend a public safety levy to reduce property tax burden on residents. And in a quote, they say, "It's dangled out there that if you allow this type of operation in your community, if you want this type of operation in your community, there will be revenue that comes to your community," Anderson Township Administrator Vicky Earhart said. And then it's swept by the state, she says. Scarlett said some municipalities are threatening to cut off adult use marijuana sales if they don't get the money in return, and he urged lawmakers to maintain existing revenue for host communities and use any additional funds from a tax increase on the state's pet projects. In a quote, they say, "They need that revenue," State Senator Casey Weinstein, Democrat from Hudson, said. In a quote, "It really is bad policy to override the will of the voters and take back promises that were made in law to those municipalities," they say, you guys. Man, oh man, rhinos hard at work in the great state of Ohio, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Okay, how are you gonna call them rhinos, bro? This is just what Republicans do.
No. Governor Mike DeWine is a certified 100% rhino.
He's a rhino because he doesn't bend the knee to Trump.
No, he's a rhino because he was supposed to do something. He didn't do it. He is a straight up rhino.
Well, that's what Republicans have a track record of doing. Saying one thing and then doing the other.
I don't know about all that, but okay, go on.
Democrats have a track record of saying they're going to do everything and getting like maybe one or two things done. They overpromise, underdeliver, and
Democrats don't do anything, bro. That's why
one thing and then it's just a bait and switch.
No, Democrats don't do anything, bro. That's why they're called the do nothing Democrats. Stop it.
No, it's not.
Go on. You have any other points on this?
Politicians, Rico. That's not left or right at all. Mm-hmm. None of them.
That's why I called them out both. That's why I said both.
All they do is create corruption and harvest the people's money and spend it on whores.
I think Ohio. I think the constituents of Ohio should have saw this one coming when they legalized, and the Republicans tried to shut that shit down. And it wasn't until they brought up Ohio State losing to Michigan.
Yeah, exactly.
And cannabis sales, they're like, oh well, all right, we're gonna push this thing, we're gonna shove this thing on through. They should have saw this coming a mile away.
You know, this is the thing. I want to see what some of these cities, if they pull out and say, oh, you know what, we're going to remove adult use sales from our jurisdiction, and we're opting out of the program. And then all of a sudden, then if you're a business owner that has one of those licenses, and the city does that, I think you're going to have a serious legal battle on your hands.
I just like how DeWine says, but we have jails to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have jails that need money.
Jails to fill. We have for-profit jails to fill. America.
Yeah,
isn't it great?
It is the greatest country in the world. Jenny Beth, are you with us? No, she's not with us. Oh, there she is. You have anything to say today, Jenny Beth?
In spirit, once again.
Okay. All right. Dr. T, Dr. Mark, you have anything you guys would like to chime in on this whole Ohio debacle? I think the governor is way out of line for this, and I think maybe we should call for his impeachment.
Well, I mean, the war on drugs is failed policy. Every time I read these, I mean, the only thing that I would approve spending the tax money on is the public education portion of it, 14%. Other than that, hiring more police officers, stocking your jails with people is really failed policy. I don't know why they haven't realized that and keep wanting to put people in jail.
I totally agree with you on that, buddy. Totally agree with you on that. Dr. Mark, what do you got to say? Are you with this recall of Governor Mike DeWine?
Yeah, I mean, anything that's going to inhibit access to quality cannabis. I know that they have, what is it, just a medical program, but they don't have adult use?
No, they have adult use. Yeah, they have adult use. It just kicked in. They've been having sales since probably like last summer.
Right. So what do their market numbers look like?
Michigan keeps on eating their lunch because they don't sell eighths. They only sell tenths.
Yeah, well, is it Michigan or is it the trap that's eating their lunch?
Michigan's eating. Well, if you compare the Michigan numbers and the amount of Michigan or Ohio residents that are shopping in Michigan, Michigan is eating Ohio's lunch.
Well, when you have borders like that, where again, you're right, if you live in Toledo, you're probably closer to the operations in Michigan than you are. I don't know. I mean, how widespread the dispensaries are, how available it is, but yeah, you're just going to discourage people to go elsewhere.
I feel like there must be a lot of Taco Bells up there because they're all making a run for the border.
Yeah, Taco Bells and McDonald's. Yeah.
You have anything you want to throw? You have anything you want to throw in this, Jesse?
No, it's just the typical crappy politicians. It doesn't matter if they're left or right; they are not representing their people.
Well, that's right. It's so right. He's definitely not representing his people, and he's definitely not representing Republicans. That's for sure. This guy is. You have anything you want to throw in? Final.
Republicans support the war on drugs.
Not all of them. No, that's not true. That's not
most.
True. No.
Did you say?
I would say most.
I would say most Democrats support the war on drugs too. I think it's fair.
I would say they it's like a default thing, right? If you're it's like people like us do things like this, It's, if you happen to be a Christian and you go to church, you are probably more Republican, and then your friends and people like that are probably more anti-drug and anti-party and anti-drunk and things like that. So it's like to fit in. But they it all comes from ignorance. It's not they're not saying these things from knowledge at all. It's just total ignorance. And that's
I agree.
something
To criminalize a health problem makes no sense to me. It's just there's no rational thought behind that at all.
Yeah, I don't. I think they think they're doing a good thing, right? Like that was kind of the whole thing about the war on drugs, and even going back to Anslinger, is that Anslinger was able to convince a lot of people that by being anti-cannabis and anti-drug, you were like good. And that alignment in people's minds has stuck. And so we're fighting 100 years of propaganda that's built up in people's minds. This is not just, a simple thing to overcome.
Yep. Yes, but we will overcome. And on that, we are going to go right into our next story. We're going to roll in Dr. Gene Talleyrand. He's the founder of the CESC and of Medican, where you should be getting your doctor's recommendations here in the great, great state of California. That's right. You can find him all day, every day, writing scripts, and he probably even wrote your parents' recommendation as well. That's right. It is none other than the doctor himself, Dr. Gene Talleyrand.
Thank you, Jason. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. So my story today is an analysis of the effect of cannabis retail stores in the state of Washington. According to data published in the American Journal of Alcohol and Drug Abuse, counties with a high volume of cannabis retailers have reduced levels of opioid-related deaths and do not experience increase in traffic-related fatalities or suicide. The state of Washington legalized cannabis for adult use in 2012. Retail stores began to open in 2014, with 31 stores rising to 447 by 2020. Mortality data from the individual death records of 39 counties were analyzed from 2009 to 2020. So 12,933 deaths were from suicide, mostly men, 77% men. 11,873 were from accidental poisoning. 8,858 were from opioid overdose. 6,761 were from motor vehicle accidents, and 2,408 were from homicide. Just to point out that suicide was 6 times more frequent than homicide, at least in Washington. The researchers reported significant reductions in mortality rates were associated with increased county cannabis recreational stores for both accidental poisoning and opioid overdose deaths. They theorized that these reductions could be due to a substitution of cannabis with opioids, alcohol, or other drug use, or quantities of use among those with heavy habitual use and use disorders. The investigators did not find a correlation between store density and motor vehicle accidents, homicide, or suicide. A similar study published last November found that consumers frequently use cannabis as a substitute for other substances, including alcohol, methamphetamine, morphine, and tobacco. Other studies have documented an association between cannabis dispensaries and opioid-related mortality. The authors concluded, while this study should be interpreted in the context of broader literature, it is consistent with the possibility that increased access to legal cannabis reduces poisoning mortality. So this study is evidence that introducing cannabis into a community is likely to have a positive effect. Cannabis sales don't increase motor vehicle fatalities. So why does the state spend money evaluating intoxicated cannabis driving? Cannabis retail stores appear to reduce accidental poisoning, including opioid overdose. So why are we considering laws against high THC products? Our public conversation continues to operate on conjecture and myth over evidence. Rather than keep the children away from cannabis dispensaries, families should move to areas where there are more dispensaries. If you live in the state of Washington, these areas are safer. Does your county have cannabis dispensaries? This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News.
Wow, 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 wow. This is... What do you have to say about this, Rico? Are you with us, Rico?
He's muted for some reason.
I think you're on mute, buddy.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah, there
Oh,
you
there
are.
he is.
There you are. There you are.
Sorry about that. I was getting into deep into this Star Wars theory in the chat.
I bet.
My nerd ass.
I bet. I mean,
but yes. I don't see why it would not why retail wouldn't be linked to fewer opioid deaths. Like it helped me. Cannabis. A lot of people know my backstory. Cannabis actually helped me get off opioids, and even though we're not allowed to say this legally, I don't know. Maybe that's a positive about RFK Jr. because pseudoscience is going to be the new science. We're going to be able to say some shit like this when they don't want us to say. The medical establishment doesn't want us to say that. Like my personal truth is I went to rehab twice, and all I got from rehab was better drug dealers, better connects, better plugs.
Hey, I'm not mad at that. You know,
real talk.
Here's the thing.
But when I was given cannabis, when I did not believe in cannabis as medicine, I believed it, just weed. That actually got me to quit. So, so I believe this 100%, straight up. And when it comes to the motor vehicle accidents and everything, like, I drive recklessly when I'm drunk. That's why I don't drive drunk anymore. And not going to incriminate myself, but I don't believe that cannabis really affects driving as poorly as it's projected to be.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we covered a story earlier this week where they said that there was going to be toxin, and I think it was in the White House in regards with cannabis safety, as far as with impaired driving and what to do in regards to that. And they were going to be looking at a different science and whatnot. So I hope that they include this in that conversation, even though I'm doubtful that they will. But to me, the drug driving thing is just a mythological unicorn that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think we need to have evidence before we make laws. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
We're always making laws without evidence. That's not a good policy.
Yeah, especially, you know what I'm saying? Especially, they should take a lesson from court, because you can't charge anybody without any evidence, Dr. T.
Right. I mean, I'm sure all those dispensaries in Washington have high potency THC products in there. Are we seeing the problems with it? No,
yeah.
Not yet.
Exactly.
So let's use the evidence.
Yep. And then it amazes me.
That's the argument against RFK, right? He's worried about high potency. I don't know why.
I don't think he's really necessarily worried about high potency. I think that was just a talking point. I think that was just a talking point for Laura Ingram's show, because she's a prohibitionist. I'm not putting a lot of weight into that comment. I think it's all about talking to your audience, and you know what I'm saying, and that's the easy thing, because the reality is we all know the testing is totally flawed. So is there really even high potency cannabis to begin with?
Well, there's some that have more concentration, a higher concentration. When you talk about potency, you've got to bring up the end effect, because there are multiple effects from cannabis. So are you talking about the high? Are you talking about the energy? Are you talking about the sleepiness? There are different products causing different things. So when you're talking high potency, you got to define it.
Yeah, no, I agree. They need to sign up for some classes. We should teach them, Dr. T.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So we can get them straight.
Jenny Beth, you have anything to say about tolerance? No, she's being a little extra today, you guys. Look at this.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, this is Valentine's Day. She's probably all cuddled up or something right now. Oh man. Well, we're gonna keep this train rolling. We are gonna roll right into our next commercial, and we are gonna be right back. I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that?
So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Oh, yeah. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. And YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Are you a business that's suffering from the hyperinflation that is plaguing America today? We have the solution for you. That's right. Patriot Business Financing. Head on over to www.patriotbfc.com and apply for a loan up to $2 million. Any state, any industry, even the cannabis industry, the CBD industry, as well as the industrial hemp fiber industry, secure up to $2 million today. And make sure that when you apply, you tell Paul you said hi from High at 9.
Oh, and we are back, Rico.
Yeah, y'all. I hope you got your blue books ready, because the undefeated peddler of truth is here to put you booth peddlers to rest. The Northeast based, scientifically driven professor is in the building. Dr. Mark Scialdone. What you got for us, Dr. Mark?
Hey, thank you, Rico, and happy Valentine's Day. Make sure to give your loved ones a big hug and a kiss today.
Yes.
I appreciate them every day, but show them a little special love today.
Give them a little more than that.
Exactly. Right.
Cream-filled chocolate.
So my story today comes from MJ Biz Daily, and it's entitled "Cannabis Testing Lab Fraud Can Be Cured If Industry." Or can be curbed, if industry is part of the solution. And this is mostly the opinion of a guy named David Valancourt. A scientist, David Valancourt, has spent most of his cannabis industry career working on standardizing the rules, measurements, and recommended procedures that guide licensed marijuana businesses. Valancourt certainly has the credentials to back his mission. He's the vice chair of the Pennsylvania headquartered ASTM, which stands for American Society of Technology and Measurements, ASTM's International Cannabis Committee D37 on Cannabis Standards. He's a board chair and co-founder of the S3 Collective, cannabis industry nonprofit in Colorado advocating for industry standardization. He's also the CEO of the GMP Collective, his Colorado-based consulting firm. His work is often intersected with the marijuana industry's testing lab niche, which in recent months has been rocked by scandals and lawsuits in major markets such as California, Colorado, and Massachusetts and New York. MJ Biz Daily spoke about testing lab fraud with Valancourt, who welcomes increased scrutiny of the sector, but believes that businesses must also do more. So here's some of that interview. The interviewer was asking questions like, why are we seeing so many testing lab scandals at this point of the industry's evolution? David answered, it's going to be since third-party labs testing has been around. So it's always been going on, according to him. It's always been talked about. I look at this as a positive that we're finally getting some more traction. One of the reasons why I think it's coming to light is because several labs are going above and beyond their job in collecting and summarizing data. There are people like Yasha Khan at MCR Labs in Massachusetts that are bringing this information to the public sphere and showing unequivocally that there is a major issue around lab shopping. I want to ask the industry, What are you doing to be part of the solution? Because the industry is one that's choosing to pick Lab A over Lab B because of more favorable results. That's straight up fraud. They are defrauding consumers by knowingly picking labs that are going to have more favorable results. The onus needs to be on the industry to say, we are not okay with doing this, and let's be part of the solution. Have ethics and integrity. So then the interviewer asks, how would standardization help reduce testing lab fraud? Standardization is necessary, but what standardization actually means could be a catch-22. We want to standardize testing methods so that every lab is running the exact same high-performance liquid chromatography run time and all of those little details. Then you might as well just have one government lab that does this for the entire industry, and then there's no competition between the labs. But then you could say goodbye to innovation, and that's a challenge. We definitely need standardization. It's more of a framework for needing a bar, needing to set performance minimum standards. How accurate and precise do these labs' results need to be? How are samples selected? If they're cherry picking buds for testing, then of course the results are going to be more favorable towards a high THC value. If there's no safeguards around how to sample at random with integrity, then it does not matter what the lab test is. We need those types of minimum standards. What process has been made in terms of standardization? The interviewer asks. David responded, we have over 60 standards now that have gone through the consensus process. We have standards on how to collect and prepare a representative sample. We have several standardized analytical test methods. We have specifications for packaging and labeling. We have sustainability standards being developed. And as of mid-2024, 13 states have adopted some of these ASTM standards. States starting to adopt them, which means that we're starting to chip away at this problem. But it's still very much a patchwork thing. There's still a lot more to do. So then the interviewer asks, some labs have filed lawsuits alleging that testing fraud by competitors. Some industry stakeholders welcome such lawsuits. Others say they're just attempts to make competitors look bad. How do you see it? David responded by saying, lab shopping is a major problem, and I applaud the labs for taking matters into their own hands. I hate seeing the buck passed and people saying, well, it's the regulator's responsibility. We all share in that responsibility. What I see coming out of these lawsuits, at least, is a catalyst for change. Is this going to solve the problem? Heck no. Is there a simple solution? There isn't. So getting more visibility and airtime, I see as a net positive. The interviewer then asked, it seems the best way to deter fraud is to do spot inspections. Should the industry be seeing more of those? And then David responded, I see that as being a big part of the solution because it's data. We need to have spot checks that really bring to light that issue. And the fear of getting caught will drive compliance. The interviewer then asked reference labs, do you think that should be put forward as a solution? What do you think? I see that as part of the solution. So a reference lab, I think what they're referring to that is like a state-run lab that would basically be checking all the results that are going on in that state. I think that's what they refer to as a reference lab. So a reference lab that is a government-run independent lab does not have a financial incentive like third-party testing labs and is focused on establishing the standard So when there is a lawsuit or other discrepancy, you can go back and say, here is the real number. The real number is basically coming from the state-run lab that doesn't have a financial dog in the fight. He says that that's critical. Hemp-derived THC products and accompanying consumer safety issues pose another challenge for testing labs. How should the industry address testing hemp-derived products? And David responded by saying, every study that I've seen has shown that hemp-derived THC products are widely variable and hardly ever meet label claims. That's a pretty important statement that he made right there, that hemp products do not meet the claims that are on the labels of those hemp products. Further, let's talk about inversion, the opposite of diversion. A quarter of the products on the shelves in certain marketplaces that claim to be derived from the marijuana plant are THC distillate that are actually derived from hemp and sprinkled with some other things in there to make them more compliant. Michigan is one that has that problem where, again, regulated cannabis products are basically being commingled and co-formulated with hemp-derived products. So do you think this problem will ever go away? And David responded saying, I'd like to ask, have we really thought about what would be acceptable? Because there is an illicit market for everything. If you want it and you got the money, you can get a hold of it. So the problem is never going to go away completely. Well, I would tend to disagree with that. I think the problem goes away when the plant is descheduled, not rescheduled, but when it's descheduled. But the point at which we are going to say it's getting better, there's actually integrity and consumer trust in the marketplace. I don't know what we've really identified that's going to look like, and I think it's going to be a few more years before we really get our arms around this. I think the industry is asleep at the wheel, and we're just being complacent and benefiting from the fruits and labors of this whole lab shopping thing. Well, that's the end of the article. You know, the lab shopping thing, you know, again, just to remind you, is that, you know, there are producers in various states that are sending products to multiple labs. And what they'll do is they'll get a certificate of analysis back on flour or edibles or whatever the product happens to be, and they'll look for the more favorable results. Obviously, with flour, you want a high THC number, and you don't want heavy metals or mold or stuff like that. But, you know, I think you're in a really difficult spot when one lab tells you you have mold and the other lab tells you you don't have mold. Well, you probably know what COA the producer is going to go with. He's going to go with the COA that makes his product look cleaner. But therein lies the problem, right? Because he's got a result from another lab that says, no, there's mold in your product or there's heavy metals in your product. It's interesting because in Massachusetts, where there is lawsuits around this lab shopping phenomenon, there are labs that are basically giving passing grades and high THC results, and those labs that are doing that, guess what? They're getting all the business in the state. And if your testing lab is failing people's product or coming up with a low THC number, guess what happens to your sales numbers? They go down. So this is certainly a problem that I think we have to address. I don't know if standardizing is all that it's cracked up to be, like David would indicate here, because it is difficult to standardize method from lab to lab, because different labs have different instruments and they have different standard operating procedures. Standardize that would be a monumental task. And the other big wild card, especially when it comes to potency, and the reason why you get different results on potency from different labs, is the regulation forces you to report potency based on a dry weight basis. Well, none of the cannabis that we buy in dispensaries is dry. It all has moisture in it. In fact, it has a lot of moisture in it, right? So if you have to report the amount of THC based on a dry weight basis, you have to basically understand what everything else is other than water in that flower material. When you pick that flower, freshly picked cannabis, freshly harvested cannabis, has up to 80 to 90% of its content is water, right? So when you dry that cannabis, you wholesale remove a lot of water, but when you're down to basically cannabis that you would smoke in a bowl or a bong, you still have about 10 to 11% by weight water. And so the problem with reporting potency back on a dry weight basis is you can't have any water there, right? So what cannabis labs are forced to do is they're forced to dry out the material to understand how much water is in there, because however much water is in there is basically, you can't extract THC from water, right? So once you know what the moisture content of the bud is, then you could correct it to what's called a dry weight basis. But in that process of drying the bud to determine what the water content is, guess what? You lose a lot more than water, you lose terpenes. Depending on how fast and how hot you dry the cannabis out, you start decarboxylating it, right? Decarboxylating, you're going to lose mass because you're converting THCA into THC. What that's going to do is it's going to drive your THC numbers up, which is exactly what the producers want. So if a lab is to dry the weed and dry it quickly and hot, guess what? They're going to have a higher THC amount than a lab that doesn't do that. So I think the water amount that's in bud and the reason why you have to report back to dry weight basis is one of the variables that makes it problematic to even compare the testing results from one lab to another lab, because these labs use different methods on determining their potency and different methods on determining how much water is present. It's statistically problematic to do comparisons between labs. And that's what this guy is trying to, do, which is we want to standardize it so we can compare the result of one lab to another lab to another lab to another lab. Well, guess what? That's going to be very statistically problematic to do right now. And a lot of this hinges back to the potency number that's very important in the psychology of the dispensary purchase, which is, I'm in this dispensary, I'm paying for the aquarium, I'm paying for those nice couches, I'm paying for all this. I'm going to buy the stuff with the highest THC number because I'm going to get the biggest bang for my buck, because I'm getting fleeced on having to pay tax, on having to pay for the aquarium, on having to pay for the couches and all that other crap. So again, you don't have to worry about that if you're just buying from your trap market dealer, right? You just show up, he gives you a bag, you give him money, and that's it, right? But I'll just stop by saying that I think that there is a lot of fraud in cannabis testing. I think a lot of that is, again, a fact of that we're in prohibition. I think when the word gets out that THC level is one metric, but there's a lot of other metrics on judging the quality of the cannabis. We talked to the abstract guys not too long ago, but the abstract compounds that are in there, those volatile sulfurs, those compounds are definitely an indication of cannabis freshness, right? And you're not going to buy, 10-year-old green beans at the produce store, so why would you want to buy 10-year-old cannabis? So I think we need to look for other metrics on cannabis quality testing other than the THC amount. But for now, we're kind of stuck in this shit show, and I'm not sure that trying to standardize testing methods between labs is going to be successful. There's Dr. Mark from the halls of St. Michael's College here in Colchester, Vermont. That's what I have to say here on the High at 9 News. What does my esteemed panel have to say about lab shopping and testing fraud in the cannabis industry?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Dr. Mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, until there's like unified protocols and whatnot, this is going to be the same thing. It's going to be a whole bunch of.
We include sampling in the testing because I think the greatest variance is due to sampling, not due to water content, although water content is very important also. Most labs will report water content on the COA.
Yeah, in fact, they have to report water content if they're reporting potency, because you can't extract THC from water, right? And so if they're not reporting water content, then there's no way that their potencies can be related to dried plant material, right, Dr. T? In order to get dried plant material, in fact, you don't take the bud and dry it out and then use that dried bud in your HPLC analysis. You do that, and then you use a different bud from that same batch, do your HPLC. And what you do with the water content measurement is you use that to do a correction on your potency measurement. Because you know when you're extracting that bud for the potency measurement, you're not extracting it from bone dry bud material, right? You're not extracting it from dried plant content. So in order to come up with the dried plant content, the lab that's measuring potency has got to also measure water content. And Dr. T, I totally agree with you that the sampling protocols, like if you're sampling nothing but your tops, yeah, you're going to get really high potency. If now you're using a COA that was obtained by sampling the tops, and you're going to be using that on a much larger batch of material that includes sugar leaf and fan leaves and bottoms, of course, the overall potency of that batch is going to be lower than the potency you're measuring at the top. Absolutely true. And here, like in Vermont, Dr. T, they have growers send in the samples to the labs. Well, obviously, the growers are going to pick the most potent piece. They're not going to pick. They're not going to harvest the material and then homogenize a sample from the lower potency branches and the upper potency. Everything is going to be the highest potency because there's a financial incentive, right? When that dispensary buyer is looking at stuff and there's stuff at 12%, there's stuff at 18%. Whoa, this stuff's at 23%. Let's buy the 23%.
Dr.
Again,
Mark.
maybe that's also,
That's why,
again,
but there are regulations in other states, though. Like in California, the regulatory testing that is put forth to the retailer and as the final COA is selected by the lab personnel. They have to come out and physically do it. They're not sending in. And there are standard operating procedures for how that sampling is done. It has to be video recorded. There has to be an employee of the distributor that's sending out for testing there to oversee. There's a whole section in the regulatory framework on how that sampling has to go because of just that. So, I mean, we're looking at,
it's a poor sampling protocol. We've done a study on it. You have to sample from the plant in the field in order to find and you have to pick certain buds from the top, the middle, and the bottom. If it's sun facing, you've got to diversify your sampling that way. They're nowhere near doing that in California. They don't realize that reaching into a bag and pulling out a bud can give you up to 50% variance. That means you can pull out a bud that's 15%. You can put out a bud that's 30%, depending on how you're reaching it. So it's just too variable.
Yeah, the other thing we saw with hemp testing, so when we were testing the tops of plants because we wanted to get the most potent where there would be THC, and we see basically THC below 0.3%. Just in the few days it took us to get that data from the field, by the time we said, okay, there's no THC in there, harvest that material. In those 3 or 4 days, John, you know what happened to the THC level? It went up over 1%. Yeah. So just even a couple days of the plant being in the field, the cannabinoid content could change drastically. So if you look at the regulations of the Farm Bill basically has to do a pre-harvest test. And they're testing these plants while they're still immature. They're certainly not close to their maturity. And what they do is they get a result that basically says it's below 0.3% THC, therefore it's hemp. But by the time that stuff gets harvested, it could be a completely different situation.
Exactly. And they've got a 30-day window, so they can test it even in the ground for 30 days. And by that time, THC
in 4 days go from 0% THC and THCA to over 1% of THC to THCA in less than 4 days. Happens in the field.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I wish you were on with our conversation yesterday, Dr. Mark, when we were talking about like my perspective is easy way to fix this lab testing shit is to just take away the legal market altogether and teach people how to grow their own shit.
Oh boy.
I mean, I don't know. I think there's still a reason that they have to test finished product, right? Because contaminants is a big thing. So imagine your packaging crew scratches their ass, doesn't wash their hands, and now you've got cannabis that's contaminated. So there's a reason why we have to do final testing. I guess I kind of agree with you as far as sampling pre-harvest. I think that's why Colorado, when they were putting out a program for hemp to actually be used in the regulated cannabis market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that metric pilot program for hemp was that there was obviously pre-harvest testing, post-harvest testing, and then testing throughout a couple other portions of the cultivation process. So I guess I see that. But I also, from a distributor standpoint and from a CPG standpoint, also understand why we need to have randomized testing that happens right before the product is shelved.
Both, yeah. For contaminants, absolutely. I would test for concentration. Potency is becoming enemy word number one for me. I hate that people substitute potency for concentration.
You know, that might be the solution though, to get the consumer base to not focus on THC percentages, is just to eliminate it completely from the whole testing model. Just eliminate that part completely.
Type 1, 2, and type 3 on the package.
Yeah.
The problem there, Jason, is like if you're a processor and you're buying trim or you're buying bud to extract it, you really need to know and make an informed decision on what's the potency of that material. So when you do the extraction, so you're going to get a lot more from a higher potency material than you would from a lower potency material.
I get that.
If your fixed cost for running that extractor is the same, whether it's high potency or low potency, you're going to make more money the more THC you get out of that extraction, right? It makes sense. I
totally understand that, Dr. Mark. But what I'm saying, I'm talking about products that go to the end consumer. I'm not talking about R&D THC tests that companies will take before they purchase a product before it goes into a final form packaging. I'm referring to final form testing of just eliminating the whole THC variable on the label. Just eliminate that 100%, just done, and just strictly for pesticides and whether it passes or fails, and done data. And that will switch the whole consumer buying model of this shopping for THC phenomenon.
What do you suggest we do in instances where certain products are, capped at a certain THC percentage? You can't have more than this many.
Stop the cap, Jenny Beth. Stop the cap.
Come on, Jason. There's rules.
Stop the cap.
No, we can't.
The bad rule.
Yes.
I don't think it's a bad rule.
It's a dumb rule. It's a stupid rule.
I understand why there's a potency restriction. I don't think it's a bad rule. I mean, listen, if the world were perfect and we wouldn't have any rules and everybody could just willy-nilly do whatever they want as long as they're putting out a safe product. But that's not the world we live in. And so some of these things, while people might not like them and we're like, well, let's just go back to selling weed in the backyard, this is what we have, and this is what a standardized industry looks like.
Fair enough.
It's a bad standardized. We can do better.
Exactly.
There are better ways to do this.
We can do better. I'm with you.
We can work it out.
I'm with you, Dr. T. We can do better, and it starts by being better and eliminating the whole THC percentage on every single package that you purchase in a store.
I don't think that would work because the consumer would still ask for it.
Now, guess what? You're going to tell them, "Oh, you know what? We don't offer it."
We got 2 stories left. We got
to go to our next commercial. We're gonna be right back so we can wrap this thing up.
Yeah. Wrap it up.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, And I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade. and in a GMP certified facility, so you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where do I even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
And we are back, you guys. We are
I
back.
love the uneducated, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're up, Jason.
Oh, yes. Coming up next, that's right, it is none other than Mr. Jesse Barney. Jesse Barney is the founder of Jesse Barney Design Co., and he's out there in the great, great state of Washington, where it's blisterly cold outside today. That's right. He can help you with all of your branding necessity needs. That's right, it is none other than the man, Mr. Jesse Barney.
All right, people. Well, I've got a cool story that follows up with my Ibogaine story a couple weeks ago. Out of SciTech Daily, the headline is Psychedelic Breakthrough. Scientists successfully achieve total synthesis of Ibogaine. The discovery opens up opportunities to study the therapeutic properties of Ibogaine and related compounds. Ibogaine, a psychoactive plant derivative, has garnered attention for its anti-addictive and antidepressant properties. However, it is a finite resource extracted from African plants such as the iboga shrub and the small-fruited vocanga tree. Additionally, its use can cause irregular heartbeats, posing safety risks and highlighting the need for a deeper understanding of how its molecular structure drives its biological effects. In a study published in Nature Chemistry, researchers at the University of California, Davis Institute for Psychedelics and Neurotherapeutics, IPN, reported the successful total synthesis of Ibogaine, along with Ibogaine analogs and related compounds from pyridine, a relatively inexpensive and widely available chemical. The team's strategy enabled the synthesis of 4 naturally occurring Ibogaine-related alkaloids, as well as several non-natural analogs. Overall, yields ranged from 6% to 29% after only 6 or 7 steps, a marked increase in efficiency from previous synthetic efforts to produce similar compounds. Ibogaine's complex chemical structure makes it hard to produce in significant quantities, and this challenging chemistry has historically limited medicinal chemistry efforts to develop improved analogs, said the study's corresponding author David E. Olson, director of the IPN and a professor of chemistry and biochemistry and molecular medicine at UC Davis. Performing total synthesis solves both problems. We can make it without having to harvest tons and tons of plant material, and we can also make analogs, several of which are demonstrating really interesting properties. Despite the cardiac risk of Ibogaine, Olson noted the compound is gaining popularity as a treatment for substance use disorders, traumatic brain injury, and other conditions. Some people want to find ways to administer Ibogaine more safely, and you might be able to mitigate risk with careful cardiac monitoring and magnesium supplementation, he said. But maybe we just need Ibogaine 2.0, a better version that still produces these profound anti-addictive and antidepressant effects, but doesn't have the cardiac risk. Analogs of interest. Olson highlighted 2 Ibogaine analogs of interest from the study. The first analog was the mirror image of Ibogaine. In chemistry, this mirror image trait is referred to as chirality. Like your left and right hand, such molecular compounds can't be superposed on each other. Nature only produces one version, and if the therapeutic effects of Ibogaine are coming from interactions with another chiral entity, like an enzyme or a receptor, then you would expect only the natural version to have an effect. Olson said, but if it's nonspecific, but then both compounds would produce an effect. When the researchers tested the effects of Ibogaine and its mirror image compound on neurons, they discovered that only the natural one promoted neuronal growth. This allowed us to show for the first time that Ibogaine's effects are probably the result of it being bound to a particular receptor, Olson said. We don't have all the details of what receptor that is, but the unnatural compound is a good tool for probing this biology. The second analog of interest was, I can barely read that, something -10 fluoroibogamine. Haha, fun one. During experiments, the compound exhibited exceptional effects on neuronal structure and function, promoting growth and reconnection. Additionally, it showcased powerful effects on serotonin transporters, which are proteins that regulate serotonin levels at synapses. The serotonin transporter is the target of many antidepressants and is hypothesized to be relevant to Ibogaine's therapeutic efficacy, Olson said. The findings, according to researchers, indicate that fluoroibogamine, I think I almost got it that time, should be further investigated as a treatment for substance use disorders, depression, and related neuropsychiatric diseases. According to Olson, the research was 10 years in the making, with the team exploring multiple synthesis routes, each with varying levels of effectiveness. A lot of these iboga alkaloids and ibogaine analogs are not made from cheap, readily available starting materials, Olson said. The difference with our strategy is that we rely on very abundant, inexpensive chemicals, and we can assemble the pieces in just a few steps. Overall, our goal was to create a more efficient process. The research team hopes that their total synthesis strategy will provide researchers with a roadmap for efficiently accessing ibogaine analogs, ultimately leading to safer and more effective medicines. That's pretty much the end of it. There's some references at the end. This is really cool on one hand, and then on the other hand, and I really can't wait to hear the doctors weigh in, because we know that the synthesized cannabis analogs and things that have been made by pharmaceutical companies are not great, and this may not be great. I have no idea, but I thought it was a great article, and it's a cool development in the research. Toss it to the doctors.
Yeah, this is a significant achievement to be able to synthesize this molecule. So, molecules are all different, so we can't even compare synthetic cannabinoids to this. But being able to synthesize this molecule, and one of the things you touched on, Jesse, is that they're actually synthesizing this in what's called enantiomeric purity. So your two hands are non-superimposable mirror images, right? Your right hand and your left hand. So the way that molecules work is there's a right-handed version and there's a left-handed version, right? And usually Mother Nature only deals with one. So this is an enantiospecific synthesis, so they're only making one and not making a mixture of both. Marinol, when it was first made, was a mixture of both. And we know that one optical isomer is not as active as the other one. So, and this fluoroibogaine is really super interesting, because now they've made a completely new product. And when you introduce fluorine onto these molecules, fluorine is like a really small atom, and it is really highly electronegative. And so it does very interesting things to contort the ring structures of these compounds when the fluorines are attached. So I think this is super interesting. Their synthesis offers up now a way that you could make other derivatives. So not just looking at ibogaine itself, which is the naturally occurring compound, but now they can make this 10-fluoro analog, and they can make a bunch of different analogs. So yeah, for a chemist like me who's exploring new molecules as therapeutic agents, this is right down my alley and super exciting to someone like me.
Yeah, I love the science. I just have to warn folks that Ibogaine is not like cannabis. Even though it is a plant, it's not cannabis, and it does kill people, right, at the wrong dose.
Yep.
So be careful in using it out there. Dosage matters.
Yeah, don't dose yourself.
It's an alkaloid, not a cannabinoid.
Correct.
Yeah, there's been, I should double up on that. There's been very, very clear warnings. This is not something you get from the street. This is something only to be taken in a medical supervised situation, where if you do go into cardiac arrest, you have all of the tools there to stop it. And that's the only safe way to use it for the purposes that it is being used, which is as this serious antidepressant and anti-addiction drug. So I just want to echo that. everybody tell everybody this is very important. This is not a drug. This is not a party drug. It's not a fun thing. It's very, very, very serious.
Treatment.
Yes.
That should be used.
Treat women.
It's Valentine's Day, Rico.
Closing us out today is none other than the mouth from the South, the melanated and very opinionated by phone purveyor of pseudo truth. Just kidding, Jenny Beth. You know I love you. Come to the stage. Just to serve 501c3.
Yeah.
In kind cannabis consulting, Jenny Beth Dills. Yeah.
Okay, well, a judge has ordered Colorado Springs to remove a measure from the April ballot that sought to repeal voter-approved recreational marijuana sales. The ruling came after the city missed a critical deadline to send ballots to overseas and active-duty military voters. Fourth Judicial District Court Judge Hillary Gurney said the measure would confuse voters and violate the state constitution, which requires such questions to appear only in general elections during even-numbered years. The city had appealed the decision, arguing the ruling disenfranchised voters and limited their ability to repeal laws. Despite the legal battle, the city now says it will comply with the order and move forward with mailing ballots early next week. So here we go in Colorado Springs again. I don't understand. I do understand because we've fought against it, but I don't understand in 2025 how this is still happening. The vote has passed finally. They failed it in previous years, but it passed. So I don't understand how there's so much back and forth and they're still trying to send the ballots out with this measure on there. So it's against the Constitution, the state Constitution. It's against, everything that you would think when you're thinking about a voting constituency. And so I don't know. I'll throw it back to you guys. I'm just getting very frustrated with this story.
Jenny,
it doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Jenny, when I saw this, the last time we covered this, the city council was gonna put it up for another vote, and so I when I saw this story, I thought it was in relation to that vote where a judge was saying, no, city council, the people have already voted, and you can't just go against the will of the people and throw it on the ballot again.
That's what they're talking about, Jason.
So that's great news.
It is great news, but did you hear the end of the story? How the story ended?
Well, that's what I was confused about. That's why I wanted to make sure I get this clerical, information correct.
Yeah, I don't know. They're mailing ballots out, so we'll see if we'll see what happens. The judge has blocked it, but we'll see if that's upheld or what happens if the city just does whatever the fuck they want anyway.
Maybe all those religious ones out there need to pray about this.
Got to pray just to make it today.
Mm-hmm. You have any thoughts on this, Jesse, Barney? Colorado Springs?
My enemies.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Colorado winters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know how I feel. The church in that regard, in a place like Colorado Springs, where James Dobson is clearly kind of in control, they're just an instrument of propaganda that's controlled through the IRS. So... Christians need to wake up to that fact and realize that a lot of that is the case.
What are they going to do when the IRS gets abolished pretty soon?
Well,
what are you doing? What are you going to do when the Constitution gets abolished?
Constitution ain't getting abolished. Stop it. Go ahead, Jesse.
Serious cap.
Yeah.
It's that would be awesome. I think if you eliminate the IRS, you eliminate 501c3 corporations, and you eliminate that control that the government has over the churches and their messaging that most people don't know exists, especially Christians who attend those churches. They just don't know that it exists. They don't know that it's a tool of messaging. So, and that's what's happening here. The whole point of saying that is that's exactly what's happening in Colorado Springs. It's definitely a tip of the spear for that, clearly. So it just sucks all around.
Fair enough. Dr. T, Dr. Mark, you have any comments you want to throw in on this? I guess all I have to say on this is a big win for Weed for the People right here, because, you know what I mean? That's what it's all about at the end of the day. And it seems like the voters' will is going to prevail ultimately in this, but we're going to continue to follow this Colorado Springs story with any new upcoming developments. And thank you so much for covering this today, Jenny Beth Dills. All right, Rico, you ready? It's Valentine's Day.
I'm ready. I'm done talking about Valentine's Day shit in the chat. I love y'all.
Yeah. It's cream-filled chocolates day.
Yes. Thank you all for joining us for yet another episode of High 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to the super fans showing love in the comment section.
Yeah, the C word. C word with a big old. Yeah, C word, man. Shout out to the C word. Yeah, much love.
Yeah. Giving Jason Beck just enough to buy a cream-filled chocolate for himself.
Baby.
And big love to all the rest of the audience, the live audience and online supporters. Catch them across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry. To our vetted correspondent team tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective, your respective opinions to the table. Our production team, Cloud Media Partners, our sponsors keeping the lights on. AV struggles to a minimum. Big ups to Aim High, Catalyst, and the list goes on. Make sure you guys pick up some parody gummies as well. Got a link for that, Jason? You putting out there or no?
Yes. Just send me a DM. Just send me a DM.
Yes.
We're working on some things on the website.
As always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason why the High at 9 News shows up to read these stories every single day. Thank you. It has been February 14th, Valentine's Day, and I'd like to give a special shout out and love to my wife. And we'll be celebrating our 12th wedding anniversary.
Amazing. That's what I'm talking about.
This Sunday as well.
Yes. Getting it, bro. Getting it.
Yes. The show's over. You've all been blessed with the top industry headlines. Hope it's enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until Monday, where it's President's Day. Maybe the last President's Day.
Stop it. We're going to be celebrating President's Day. Shout out to presidents.
For High 9 News, Cannabis Industry's #1 daily news show. And we're going to pop things right back out. Who got left here, man?
Yeah, we got it full.
Killing today, Dr. T. Dr. T, you going to give us some love for the weekend, man?
Sure. What's coming through my mind is Ziggy Marley's words, "Love is my religion." Happy Valentine's Day.
Yes, there we go.
Love, bury it.
All love. Let's run it in.
No pulling out.